Dear Diary, today I fell down another rabbit hole. I told myself I'd just read a few articles, but here I am, hours later, chasing names I shouldn't know and piecing together details no one's supposed to remember. I'm Neely Faulkner, and this is Dead Diary, a true crime journal for the obsessed, the curious, and the ones who always dig a little deeper. So let's go ahead and turn the page, but don't say I didn't warn you. Today, we're really digging into a case that's just been captivating and honestly quite baffling, the Brian Walshe case. It's grabbed headlines way beyond New England, and it's full of these twists that almost seem unbelievable sometimes. So, our mission here is to cut through some of that noise, get down to the key facts, and give you a crucial update. We're focusing on the complexities around the upcoming trial for the alleged murder of his wife, Anna Walsh. We want you to walk away truly understanding what's going on without feeling totally overwhelmed. So, we're going to pull out the most important bits, the key details from the latest court documents and the news reports we've looked at. We're not just laying out what's happening, but really trying to unpack why it matters, especially in the bigger legal picture. These sources really shed light on the prosecution strategy, how it might be evolving, and also the big, maybe even unprecedented hurdles the defense is facing. So maybe let's just start at the beginning. Before we jump into all the latest legal stuff, it helps to remember who Anna Walsh was. She was 39 years old, a Serbian American real estate executive, and also a mom of three young boys. They were just 2, 4, and 6 when she vanished. She worked for a big firm, which meant she was often splitting her time between their home in Cohasset, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C. She and Brian Walsh got married back in 2016. They'd met at the Wheatley Hotel. And the last time anyone definitely saw her was really early on January 1st, 2023. This was right after New Year's Eve dinner they had at their home in Cohasset with Brian and also another friend. Prosecutors say Anna tried calling her mom, her sister, and her maid of honor in those first few hours of 2023, but apparently they didn't pick up. Then fast forward a few days to January 4th. That's when she was officially reported missing. And interestingly, it was both her employer and Brian who reported it. Brian's initial story was that she had suddenly flown down to DC for some kind of work emergency. He claimed she took an earlier flight than the one she supposedly had booked for January 3rd, but that story, well, it hit a snag almost immediately. Investigators just couldn't confirm any flight. There was no record of her getting on a plane or even getting a ride to the airport, like through Uber or Lyft. And maybe even more telling, her credit cards, debit cards, nothing, absolutely no activity since January the 1st. So those contradictions, they obviously set off alarm bells right away. It led pretty quickly to Brian's first arrest. That was on January the 8th for misleading the police investigation because he claimed he was out running errands at CVS and Whole Foods on January 2nd. But police found evidence, things like surveillance footage, showing he actually went to a Home Depot. And he spent about $450 there specifically on cleaning supplies, mops, buckets, tarps, tape, things like that. And then the police searched the house. A search warrant for the Walsh home turned up blood in the basement and also a knife damaged and bloody. So you can probably connect that with the Home Depot trip. It starts to paint a very, very disturbing picture. Not long after that, he was arrested again on January the 18th, and that's when the more serious charges came down: murder and also disinterring a body without authority. He's pleaded not guilty to everything. The prosecution's allegation is that Brian killed Anna in their house, probably early on New Year's Day, then dismembered her body and disposed of it in the trash, which brings us to maybe the biggest challenge here. Anna's body has never actually been found. That makes this a no-body murder case. And how much harder does that make things for the prosecution? Well, incredibly harder. It's a huge hurdle. They have to not only prove that she's dead, but also that he killed her, all without the most direct piece of evidence. It means they have to rely entirely on circumstantial evidence, forensic traces, digital evidence, motive, basically building the case piece by piece. It's not impossible because there have been convictions in no body cases before, like the infamous Helly Crafts wood chipper murder back in the 1980s. But it definitely raises the standard of proof that's needed. And the digital evidence we mentioned, some of it sounds pretty shocking. The alleged Google searches are a major part of the prosecution's case. They claim Brian used his son's iPad to search for some really disturbing phrases, stuff like dismemberment and best ways to dispose of a body, how long before a body starts to smell, and even starkly, can you be charged with murder without a body? Searches like that in a case built on circumstantial evidence can be absolutely vital. If the prosecution can firmly link those searches to him and show the timing, it speaks volumes about potential intent, planning, and consciousness of guilt, and it really just helps to tell the story. And it's not just digital. There were some physical items found too during the search for Anna. Police found some clothing, some jewelry Brian apparently said Anna had been wearing during a search of a dumpster next to his mother's house. And crucially, they found a hacksaw there. Later testing reportedly found a tiny bone fragment on it. And another potential piece of the puzzle for the prosecution, they've pointed out that Anna Walshe had taken out about $2.7 million in life insurance, and Brian was named as the sole beneficiary, so that provides a possible financial motive. Putting it all together, Brian was indicted back in March on first-degree murder, misleading police, and that charge of improper conveyance of a human body. For the trial itself, we do have a date. Norfolk Superior Court Judge Diane Frenier has set the trial date for October 20th, 2025. Jury selection is supposed to start that month. The defense is already making moves, trying to shape what evidence the jury actually gets to hear. This is standard pre-trial maneuvering. But one of the biggest things they're trying to suppress are those Google searches we talked about. Brian's lawyers say the police obtained that search history improperly, specifically saying they didn't have a valid search warrant for the son's iPad where the searches were allegedly made. If they succeed with that motion, it would be a huge blow to the prosecution, taking away some pretty damaging evidence. Potentially, it could significantly weaken the narrative the prosecution wants to build about his mindset and his actions after Anna disappeared. And there's also ongoing legal back and forth about DNA evidence. Prosecutors recently filed an update about getting funding approved to use a private lab for testing some key samples. That suggests they're really focusing on the forensic side too. Now, there's another layer to this case that's just fascinating and maybe troubling, and it is the lead investigator in this case. This adds a whole other dimension of complexity. Suspended Massachusetts State Police Trooper Michael Proctor was remarkably a lead investigator in both the Brian Walshe case and the Karen Reed murder case, another very high-profile Norfolk County case. Two major controversial cases led by the same troopers seem significant, and Walsh's defense team now has access to a huge trove of documents, hundreds of pages of notes, over 2,500 images from the DA's office, and a lot of it involve Proctor. Proctor's conduct in the Karen Reed case caused quite a stir. His testimony in that first trial, which actually ended in a hung jury, raised some serious questions about police integrity and conduct. He was eventually suspended, relieved of duty actually, and during that trial, he had to admit on the stand to sending some incredibly unprofessional, vulgar text messages, text to colleagues, even family, where he called Karen Reed derogatory names like a whack job. He even said horrible things like he wished she would kill herself, and he tried to explain all that away by saying his emotions got the best of him. Having an investigator with that kind of documented behavior, and on this case too, let's talk about what that means for the Walshe trial. It means that the defense has a potentially powerful angle to attack the credibility of the investigation itself. They can suggest bias or sloppy police work or even misconduct, and they're not just looking at Proctor's actions in the Walshe case. They're trying to get records related to how investigators, including Proctor, handled other cases too. Specifically, they want documents, emails, texts, whatever, related to the Karen Reed case and another disturbing case involving the alleged killing of a woman named Sandra Birchmore by a Stoughton police detective, Matthew Farwell. They're trying to establish a pattern of alleged misconduct within the Norfolk County investigative circles. They're trying to show Proctor's issues weren't isolated, potentially casting doubt on the entire system he worked within. And of course, the prosecution is pushing back because they're arguing some of that information the defense wants is privileged or it's exempt because there's a related federal investigation pending. Just some incredible layers playing out right now. And we should probably mention Brian Walshe had some other legal troubles before Anna Walsh disappeared, something involving art fraud. It's unrelated to the murder charges, but it is part of his background. He actually pleaded guilty in federal court to selling fake Andy Warhol paintings. He got sentenced to over 3 years for that and ordered to pay back around $475,000. And the key detail here is that when Anna went missing, he was actually under house arrest waiting to be sentenced in that art fraud case. Just another really unusual element in this whole saga. So let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot. We've looked at this really complex web of evidence in the Brian Walsh case, lots of digital clues, some physical items, a potential motive, but also major legal challenges, especially the fact that it is a no-body case, which puts immense pressure on the prosecution. And then there are the defense moves, like trying to suppress those Google searches, which could really change the game. And layered on top of all that is the really controversial role of the lead investigator, Michael Proctor. His involvement, given the issues in the Karen Reed case, could have huge implications for this trial and maybe even broader trust in the investigation. So we hope this dive has helped you make sense of the key pieces here. It gives you a clearer picture of this really complex legal drama as it continues to unfold. And as we inch closer to that 2025 trial date, there's definitely still a lot to watch. And here's something to mull over. What does a case like this, sitting right at the intersection of technology and questions of official integrity, tell us about where our justice system is heading? How is evidence changing, and how does that impact our trust in the process, especially in this digital age? Let us know what you think about this case wherever you're listening, and we'll be back next week with another case. We'll see y'all soon. Dead Diary is a production of Murder Creek Media. To explore more of our work, including our investigative true crime series and other stories that keep us up at night, visit murdercreekmedia.com. Remember, new episodes of Dead Diary drop every week, so make sure to follow or subscribe on any podcasting platform. We'll see y'all soon.